Have you ever found yourself jumping from one job to the other or upgrading your academic credentials in pursuit of more money, only to realize that the money is not enough? Well, I'm Mohomuzi Franz from Key Wealth, and today I'm going to teach you about money and how money works. You see, money started as an idea, started as a concept to replace what we used to know as the barter system, where I could give you a cow and then you give me something equivalent in terms of value. But with money came certain things like inflation, purchasing power, and interest. Yes, interest. And when we talk about interest, we talk about something called compound interest. Compound interest is the eighth world wonder. And he said those that don't understand it, they pay it. And those that understand it, they earn it. And most of us, when we buy things, we buy them on credit, which attracts interest. Now, you need to understand that there's a difference between cash and credit. Cash is that money you get from blood and sweat. You go to work from 9 to 5, and then you're remunerated with cash, or you're remunerated with either plastic money or money transferred into your account. But the moment you go out and borrow money, either through a bank or through a loan shark or any other mode of lending and borrowing, you get what is called credit. And let me tell you what a loan is. A loan is like borrowing money from the future and saying, advance me all that money in the future. Let me spend it now, and I can suffer later paying it back. So understanding what loans are, what credit are, what compound interest are, is actually the start of you understanding what is money and how money works. Now, let's go back and understand how money was created. I can tell you one thing. I'll quote a gentleman called Zig Ziglar. He said, money is not everything, but it's right there with oxygen. So clearly it means that us understanding money is critical in the daily livelihood. I can tell you one thing, modern day slaves are not in handcuffs. They're actually in debt because a lot of us don't understand loans. We end up getting into debt and we become indebted. Let me give you the statistics. In Botswana right now, we're a population of 2.1 million. And out of this population of 2.1 million, we have about 400,000 people working under the formal sector. As we know what happened in the past few months, a lot of people lost their jobs. So clearly this number is not at this anymore. Now, we have more than 10 commercial banks, plus loan sharks. It means everyone wants to borrow you money. And remember I said they borrow you with this issue of compound interest. Now, in 2012, we had a household debt of 16.1 billion. To me, when I look at this figure, and I even go further and say 16.1 billion, 67% of it was unsecured loans. That means your car loans and your personal loans. And I will say this, Botswana are indebted, but not to invest in assets, but to buy liabilities. And 24 months down the line from 2012, our household debt actually increased to, in 2014, it actually increased to 23.4 billion. And look, here we had arrears of 1.2 billion. We owe banks, we don't even pay them. See, if I can ask you, that loan that you continuously consolidate and top up, where is the money? A lot of people won't be able to show what they have done with the money. Now, here at Key Wealth, what we believe in is you investing your money in income-generating assets. That's how you're going to create passive income and that cash flow. Now, look at this. Who creates the money and who owns the money? If I'm going to summarize it for you in a nutshell, there's something called the central bank, which controls inflation. Okay, let me write it here. It controls inflation, and it also prints money. In actual fact, here in Botswana, we can call it Bank of Botswana, which is the central bank. Now, what then happens is the central bank will borrow commercial banks, which we know their names and we know how they operate. These are the banks that do retail banking, where you go and apply for a loan, or you get to borrow money for consumption. What then happens is Bank of Botswana will borrow these commercial banks at about 1.5 less prime. Now, let's remember it. Here in Botswana, prime right now is at 7%. Now, it means Bank of Botswana will borrow the commercial banks at 5.5%. Now, what then happens is you go to the bank and borrow money. They use what is called fractional reserve. Now, fractional reserve is banks are allowed to borrow out or to keep 1/10 of what they can borrow out. So if, let's say they have 1 million in cash, they can actually borrow out 10 million. So they can give you money as much as they are capable of giving you depending on how much they have in their fractional reserve. Now, if they borrow money at 5.5% and prime is 7%, if they borrow you with prime plus, it means you get money from the bank, let's say maybe at 10%, you are paying compound interest. Let's say you earn 10,000 pula a month, right? 10,000 pula a month. In 5 years, what will happen is you'll have earned about 600,000. Now, with the 600,000, you go out to the bank and take a personal loan of 200,000. Now, what then happens is, let's say your interest, we just make an example. Let's say your interest, you end up paying an interest of 100,000. What then happens is you end up paying back 300,000, even though you have used the 200,000. Now let's go back to how much you earned in that 5 years. You earned 600,000, you pay 300,000. So in actual fact, you have only enjoyed 300,000. But let alone other deductions that come in this 300,000, being tax, and your pension deductions, and all this other, like medical aid, all those other deductions. And then also you go ahead and do your budgeting, like you buy consumable items. The Maslow hierarchy of needs. You need that shelter, you need that food, you need all that security, all those things that you end up paying in there. So you end up not enjoying your money, or you end up not having enough to create wealth. And years will go by. What then will happen is you will then go back to the bank because you are pressed, you need more money. And then you go and top up these loans. You get a loan top up, or you either consolidate your loans. But I'm here to tell you, all those words, loan top up, consolidation, refinance, all these are fancy words to mean debt. Do you realize that all the time you refinance your loan, or all the time you top up your loan, it sort of starts from scratch. Now you start your 5 years from scratch because you're consolidating, you are taking a fresh loan. Now tell me, how long would it take you to actually clear off and be able to create wealth when you do that? Now I'm saying this, and advice will be, before you top up a loan, check companies like KeyWealth, where we can do pre-loan counseling and assist you in understanding.
Contact us on 398-0321 or drop us an email at info@keywealth.co.bw and check our website on www.keywealth.co.bw. KeyWealth, unlocking your financial success.